ChatGPT is becoming more and more popular these days. More and more AI applications are coming into the picture. Today, we are going to have a look at how to create your own AI applications using OpenAI's APIs. Companies like Jasper, that is valued at 200 million, they are also using the same APIs. They have also built a service based on OpenAI's platform. You can do so too. It is not that difficult because you don't have to build an AI model from scratch. You just have to use the APIs provided by OpenAI. In this video, we are going to have a look at how to use these APIs to create your own AI applications. We will see how to get an API key and how to use the Python SDK to interact with the APIs. We will also create an AI writing assistant app, much like Jasper, but not that quite feature-rich, just a basic one, just to show you the functionality to demonstrate these APIs. And we will do that by using Vue.js as the front end and Python Flask application as a backend. The purpose of this video is to show you what all applications that you can build using OpenAI APIs. This is just an example, the AI writing app, but it doesn't stop there. You can do a ton of different applications. You can do translations, you can do transcribing, you can use the DALL-E APIs to create AI arts and build applications on top of that. There's a lot of things that's possible with these APIs. Let's get into our example of the AI writing assistant. So the first thing that you need to do is to get an API key from OpenAI. You can just search for OpenAI APIs. If you don't have an account, you will have to create an account. Just use one of these options here to sign up. I'm just going to log into my account. If you want to know the URL, this is the URL, platform.openai.com/overview. But the first thing you need to do is to get an OpenAI API key. That you can do from View API Keys menu under here. But before going there, as you can see, you can do a lot of applications build a lot of different variety of applications. For example, chat embeddings, image generation, text completion, speech to text, code completion. You can create code creation plugins. It's a lot of things that you can actually do. Be sure to check out the documentation whenever you start a new project, because that will save you a lot of time. But anyway, let's create an API key. So I have some API keys created here already. To create a new API key, all you have to do is to click the button here, create a new secret API key. You have to copy this and store in a secure location, because once you press OK here, you can't re-see it. I'm not really worried of you seeing these API keys because I'm going to delete this after this video. All right, let's open up a terminal window here, create a directory for our project. And now the next thing that you need to do is to download OpenAI's Python SDK. It is showing that because I have already installed it. You also will have to, since we are going to use Flask as a backend, you need to install Flask as well. That's also installed. So I have done this project already once. So let's open up Visual Studio Code and have a look at this code here. What I have done is a bunch of import statements here. I'm creating a Flask application here. That's that bit. The API key we just created, I'm setting that to this library, Python SDK's API key variable here. In this Flask application, we do have two main routes. One is this index route, which renders an index HTML, which contains the Vue.js code that will be rendered. The Vue.js frontend will have an input prompt area and also a section to display the response from the API. And the second route is the endpoint that our Vue.js frontend will call, the /generate endpoint, which is a post request. This will in turn do the magic call this method here, generate text, which will interact with the API and provide the response. This is where the magic happens. This is just one line. Using the SDK, you can call this class chat completion. So if you look at the documentation, you have all these guides here: text completion, code completion, chat, image fine-tuning, embedding, speech to text, moderation, etc., etc. These are all the different kinds of things that you can actually do with the API. In our case, what we need is the chat completion. This is what this chat completion in the code is. This corresponds to this documentation, this area. This is the documentation that I used to create this app. And most of this code is anyway generated by ChatGPT, and I tweaked it. This particular code with OpenAI, ChatGPT generated some code, but it's out of date because it's not been trained on recent events. we can see ChatGPT is powered by GPT 3.5 Turbo. We are going to use the same model here. 3.5 Turbo is the latest language model, latest version of GPT, their GPT model. The people at OpenAI, they themselves recommend using this particular model rather than using text completion because this is cheaper. Somewhere here it's written that it's 10x cheaper. And by the way, when you sign up, you will get some free credit to play around with this API. And this is how you use the Python SDK. You specify the model and you have two different kinds of messages that you can send to the API in one request. This is one request, but you can group this into different messages. There are two kinds of messages. One is the system message and user message. The system messages tell the model, sort of like priming it for a specific task. Here I'm saying you're a helpful writing assistant / virtual assistant. But the thing is, system messages are not that important to the model. They are generally ignored by the model. So if you have something that you need to tell the model, that should not be ignored. That should be put in the user section. So this is important to me. So provide the response in Markdown format so that I can later convert that into HTML and display. And the second one is the prompt itself, which I get from the Vue.js front end. And I have some print statements here to inspect the response if there is any error. This is another library, Markdown library, which I have imported here to convert this Markdown response that comes back from the API and convert that into HTML. And I return that HTML. This goes back to our generate route. And finally here in this generate route, I'm sending back the response to the front end in a JSON format. Now let's have a look at the front-end Vue.js code. So it is in templates. There is a subdirectory. There's an index HTML file here. To be honest, this is pretty much generated by ChatGPT or even the stylings and everything. It took some time for me to get to the position that I want. And it is also using Tailwind. I'm not an expert in any of this. This is all ChatGPT generated, but I can make sense of any language really, even though I'm not an expert. It's most of the programming languages follow the more or less the same kind of structure and syntax. And so this is the main Vue.js code here. It's creating a Vue.js instance and injecting into that div the Vue.js instance there. So this methods here, the generate method, which gets called on clicking the generate button on the front end. This is where the Vue.js code interacts with our Flask backend, which in turn interacts with the OpenAI API. This code here, you can pretty much ignore it. It's just for aesthetics. Disable the generate button once it's clicked so that the user doesn't keep on pressing it to indicate to the user that it's actually processing it, because the process of generating the text response takes a bit of time. So when the user looks at the front end, if nothing happens, there's no indication. You don't know really what's actually going on. This method itself is very simple. It's a post method to our Flask backend with our prompt from the front end. Once we get the response back, we set that into this variable response, which is in turn bound to a div element here, this one here. So if response exists, show that div, and the HTML needs to be taken from the response variable. That's pretty much it. To run this application, all you have to do is to run that main script. This is a development server. This is not production ready. By default, it starts on port 5000. So this is that's my very smart. This is also ChatGPT generated. I didn't come up with this name. Getting lazier, I think. Let's give it a prompt. Best dog breeds. I'm just going to give just the title here because I have primed the model with the system message. You are a virtual assistant. Before that, I think I need to uncomment one more thing here. Oh, these two I need to uncomment. I do have 4 user messages and 1 system message. Write an engaging article. System message is just you are a helpful writing assistant, virtual assistant, to prime the model, so to speak, to narrow down its context of operation. And I'm giving some of the instructions. Write an engaging long form article in Markdown format for at least 2000 words. I'm just emphasizing it again in the line here. Please provide the response in Markdown format. And also I'm telling it the article should have stock images where possible. It's not always accurate. Sometimes the image links are broken because the training data that the model is trained on is kind of out of date. Let's enter best dog breeds and click on generate. It takes a while. So there you go. You have a top 10 best dog breeds. It's a good starting point. You get the idea. That's the demo of how to create an AI application using OpenAI API. You can also, in this documentation, when you come back, if you go through all these guides, you can create various different applications using these guides. And also you can play around in this OpenAI platform. There are these playgrounds built into this documentation. It's pretty handy, actually. You can just open that here, for example. So these are the prompts that you can design, like, the model knows how to respond to these prompts. You can have a look at all these presets here see to see examples of like what you can actually tell the how to design the prompts. This is the text to command, and there is translation. Let's submit it, and then you get the different translations into French, Spanish, and Japanese. It's pretty cool, actually. So it is go through all these examples here and create your own custom applications. The AI apps are still getting really popular and upcoming, so there is a market that you can actually take, how do you say, get into at this early stage. And if you want to see more examples, you can just click the examples, come to the examples section. You can go to these specific examples to see. Let's see, let's pick one here. It will show you the sample code. You can give the prompt here and how to actually pass that to the API. This is Python code. You can select different languages here. This one is actually using the text completion API, using different sort of like filter the temperature max tokens and things like that. You can play around with that. For example, one of these top P10, the lower the number is, I think, the less variations the model will go through. If it is higher, it will try to be more diverse in terms of like answers. I would suggest that you go through all these examples and play around with it. It's actually a good time pass, much better than scrolling through Instagram, especially when you're a beginner programmer. And these are some cool projects to include in your portfolio too. So be sure to check it out. Congratulations, you have now created a new writing assistant app. We have also gone through different products that you can potentially create with these APIs. Doesn't stop there. You can create various different applications with these chatbots, customer chatbots, one of those chatbots that you interact with, which are not the real humans. A lot of companies need them. In fact, on platforms like Fiverr or Upwork, a lot of projects are there, or buyers look there for people who create chatbots. You can just learn this and post your service there and sell chatbots there. I have seen, if you go to Fiverr right now, you can see that people are selling it. And that's a good example of how you can make money with this as a coder. So, as I said, various possibilities, play around, and that's about it. And also, it's not just about text. There is DALI API, which is about AI image creation. Again, you don't have to deal with how the AI works and everything. You just have to use the API. So that's pretty much it. And hopefully you have found some value from this video. If you like this video, be sure to check this one out. Here.